morning, everyone. And actually, it's good afternoon, isn't it? It's 12:03. So we are lighting the candle, a world that works, where each week we have fun playing verbal volleyball with different concepts, ideas, words, what have you, with the sole intention of bringing empowerment not only to ourselves, but to our listeners, you folks at home. And it is our commitment that we're just going to keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever experiences that we have to be able to share with you, so that you can, at any point during the course of your day, if something's not working for you, instead of going and taking a nap, you might be able to just press a reset button and get back up and get on with your day and more powerful and, who knows, even more enjoyment than you had before. So all that said, I'm Bill Correll. What I do for a living is a whole lot of things having to do with the internet and the cloud, all about empowerment for business people and users. And I've got a really dear friend, Ken Caputo, who is a regular. He's in fact one of the founding members. And I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute, Ken, to tell people what you do and what you're up to in life.
I am the founder of a company called Quester's Way that is currently looking for a new home. And my main thing has always been just, focusing on brick and mortar businesses that, support meaningful human connection between families and people in communities. And we're big on empowered learning. I don't really like to use the word education. It's more about creating just positive, productive learning environments for everyone, kids and adults, and just finding the joy in the moment that's right in front of you.
Yeah, I would say we could call it continuous curiosity.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, the whole idea is that you're seeking answers to which the first, second, third, fifth, 25th answers are just more energy and like the cookies along the way to keep you going,
Yep.
And so here's what I'm thinking today. I use this term an awful lot when I'm talking to people. And I didn't necessarily hear it at Quester's Way first, but I know it was one of the linchpins of everything, that Quester's Way stands for. Best day ever. And when I get to use your Quester's Way mug that I still have these years later, it really just puts a great big grin on my face, remembering all the people and how everybody felt about everyone. And maybe we could chat just a little bit about, what's the possibility when you're reminded over and over again to be curious about the best day ever. We talked about possibility, we talked about ideals, we talked about all these sort of things. And what does it actually mean when you say best day ever, Ken?
So that is a very interesting question, because the whole process of the Quester's Way, the name, the logo, even where the apostrophe went just after the S, all of that was taken into consideration. The Q is a compass, and it was all about the journey we're all on to live our best lives and be our best selves and do our best work. So when we were talking about the tagline, and just what was the statement that we wanted to make, it took a long time. There's a lot of consideration that went into that, and really best day ever on the surface, outward facing. I think that what a lot of people would say to us, they would come in and whatever experience they had in Quester's Way, you'd substitute the word day for that experience. So best birthday party ever. I mean, we had literally hundreds of people tell us that after we host their birthday party, or best class ever, their dance class, or best, chicken tenders ever in the cafe, or, whatever it was. So they were coming in and they were having what we would call a present moment experience that really, connected them to a feeling of just really being present and having a good time and enjoying the experience that was right in front of them. So, but the more important part for us was the internal facing part. To us, best day ever was a commitment and a responsibility that whenever someone walked through our door, any guest would come through our door, our responsibility to them was to provide the environment that would allow them to have the best day ever. That was our commitment. So, and it was very much not about it's so easy to get distracted and get caught up in the past. So we would have some difficult guests that were challenging as far as being very specific about what they wanted, or kids sometimes that had some behavioral stuff going on. We couldn't let that influence our commitment to make this visit their best visit ever, even if the last one was not. So it was very, very present, very in front of us every moment. From the moment the center opened to the moment it closed, we would do everything we could to create the environment for that best day ever for everyone that walked through the door.
Awesome. And you know what is implicit with a possibility of best day ever is, if it's not the best day ever now, next moment it absolutely can be.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole idea of what transformation isn't, and you've said this many times, I love it, I say it again myself, and in any moment there are myriad and absolutely endless possibilities for how we're going to experience that moment. And the interesting part about you and me, because we actually suck at being human beings, we've discussed that before, and we look around to see what's going on for other people. We kind of
Mm-hmm.
check in, and they're kind of our additional compass points out there. How are we doing over here? How are we doing over here? And we do all this, many thousands of times in a minute, and more or less just have a feeling about what's going on. And so what makes it very, very interesting is that this possibility of best day ever, it exists in the moment that it's being spoken. For me, when you are lost in the present, so engaged and having so much fun that you lose track of time and space. You're not aware of what's going on around you because you're so focused on what's right in front of you, or the task at hand, or just the having fun. And suddenly hours have gone by. It's like, what? How can that be? What just happened here? And so when you consider that you get lined up with whatever it is that you're passionate about, and hopefully it's through your own design because you're that kind of a person, where breakthroughs and passion and having an amazing life and having the best day ever isn't an accident. It's an intention, as you said before, and there's a responsible speaking that creates that, and that world gets brought into being by someone who is fully committed to best day ever.
And it's interesting as I think the intention was the thing that we'd have to hold on to it. And like, I can remember there was one time the power went out on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And basically people were there for birthday parties coming in, and the entire facility had to be shut down and evacuated. And it was devastating. I mean, the parents have been planning, and the kids are there, and they're all excited, and then everybody's out in the parking lot. And that was not the best day ever. It was not the best party ever. And and it was always such an interesting thing to hold the fact that our purpose, our commitment was to doing our part to remove the resistance as best we could without being in control of so many variables and circumstances, so that the potential for that best day would be there. And sometimes it just wasn't. More often than not, honestly, it just wasn't. And and it struck me. I was having a conversation with one of our team members about feeling pressure to create that feeling of best day ever for everyone that came in the door. And I said, here's something interesting. I taught martial arts for 3 decades, and in that time, I'd have students that would be with me we've had multiple students been with us for 20, 25 years. And if you ask them, they could probably highlight a dozen moments, a dozen experiences in all of that time that really stood out as those, vivid, memorable, best day ever experiences. And that didn't disqualify all the times that just kind of blended into the background. The quantity didn't matter. It was the potential, and when it was realized, it was impactful for decades after the fact. So that was part of it. So yeah, when the power goes out suddenly and the facility's getting evacuated, that moment may be not one of the better moments. But then there will be moments coming forwards, and we're just always going to do our part, to allow for that possibility to occur, and then we'll see what happens.
So you're talking about people live in a blood and guts physical world. It's not
Yeah.
pretty all the time. And there is I'm going to say a base uh, set of criteria that your automatic system can be trained to adopt, which is whatever it is, I'm going to be my best in this moment. My commitment will be that if I'm disempowered, this isn't going to be for a long period of time. We're not taking days and weeks here, folks, to get back on top of the horse and get going again.
Mm-hmm.
Getting thrown off, unfortunately, is encouragement that you're on the right path. Okay.
Yep.
And that said, you have to go a direction. We talked a little bit about, I don't know how deep we got into it, but we talked a little bit about anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And now that sounds completely contrary. Wouldn't you expect that, a successful person is great at everything they try and they always come through with flying colors and, with the white horse and all that good stuff? No, they don't.
I haven't met that person yet.
Nor have I. What really is cool is to see these people that are overnight successes after killing themselves for 15 years.
Yeah. Yep.
They get noticed in the last 2% of their endeavors. And then all of a sudden they get some sort of fame or notoriety. But what people don't see is they did whatever they had to do to stay on the quest,
Mm-hmm.
to stay right in there. And do you think they may have had some experiences of not quite the best day ever along the way? If the ones that I'm thinking of, I know that someone who intends to be the best in the world, for example, let's take a Tiger Woods or a Michael Jordan, or somebody of that nature, Mr. Phelps with all that hardware hanging around his neck.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that are upset with every single performance that they have in some manner or fashion by nature, because they're never looking for that was the best I could ever do. The next one is going to be the best that I can ever do, and it's going to be the best that I can ever do while I'm doing it. Once it's over with, that's history. What do we learn from it? What did I do correctly? What do I need to make an adjustment or change to? So you can chunk the best day down into the best minutes and seconds, because we're watching the Olympics right now, and these folks have worked their entire life to be in a situation where their body is either going to get them through it at peak performance, or they may have to withdraw from a gold medal round,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
that is completely within the whole idea of best day ever, because life is not about how you do when you win. I'm going to say that again. Life has nothing to do with how you behave when you win. It's all about how you behave when you don't win. And playing at that level, the best day ever sometimes is just taking a train wreck and having it not devastate your whole life for the next week or two.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, when you consider the possibilities, and this isn't Pollyanna, I'm a happy-go-lucky person. It's a beautiful day out there and all that kind of stuff. This is more like, in every single moment, what throws you off your path? What sets you back? What stops you in your tracks? What makes it impossible for that next step forward? And how do you prepare yourself? How do you pack a big enough lunch that you're ready, able, and willing, that anything that comes along is not keeping you down for very long?
And it's funny. I think the word there is prepare. And it's interesting. So I've studied martial arts for a little over 30 years now. Never had to defend myself in all the time that I've trained. The actual self-defense has been unnecessary. Some luck there, I'm sure, but a lot of it's just awareness and choices. But I know that from a health perspective, I'm in a much better place than I would be if I hadn't done it. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all those things. It's been helpful. The reality of it is, you go to the dojo for 30 years, just the same reason that the police officer trains with their gun. They requalify and they practice being effective with it, because you have to prepare in advance for situations that may or may not ever arise, and it struck us, one of the things that we did, one of the foundations of Quester's Way was thinking in terms of how do you prepare in advance for the weather systems that come and go that you're going to have to navigate in your life that you can't predict or even know what they're going to look like. And that was where the whole move, think, connect, fuel, empower thing came from, where, if you move your body every day, you'll be more likely, your immune system be stronger. If you get hurt, you'll heal better, all that kind of stuff. If you stretch your mind in different ways every day, you're going to have more knowledge and information and clarity that you can apply when an unexpected situation comes up that you have to figure out, So I think the prepare word, and honestly, thinking about the Olympics as an athlete, I loved the practice, the preparation. That's where 99% of your time is in preparing. And then, you get out and you run the race, or, you get in the ring or whatever it is. And that moment is really just partially a reflection on the level of preparation you had, a little bit of luck thrown in, some how you are that day. And you're right. I mean, it's the win or lose. From that perspective, you can be very competitive and want the win and be upset when you lose. But really all it does is it gives you a focal point for how to better prepare for the next time, which to me was the fun part anyway. So it's.
Well, I've got different quotes that are all kind of paraphrased, but, between, I mentioned Woods and also Mike, both Mikes. And essentially, they never considered themselves being anything other than in competition with themselves. The whole concept of personal best and best day ever for them is something that was completely alive in all of their speaking. And funny enough, all three of them reported, I love to practice. Tiger Woods says, when I can be out there, at dusk, and I can barely see where the hole is, and I have to make 3 15-foot putts in a row before I can go on to the next discipline, or, Michael Jordan, who basically said, look, I've got all these endorsements, and I think at one point he was pulling down like 50 million or $100 million a year in endorsements.
Yep.
He said, I'm going to tell you right now, it's just not a mystery to me why these people are hiring me to sell their stuff. I'm a basketball player. And at the moment, I'm known as the best basketball player in the world. And by the way, you and I know that's not the truth, right? He said, I am not the best basketball player on earth. I am on the winningest team in the history of the sport, for the first time, and I'm getting to play because of my teammates, and I love to practice. I would have no endorsements if I weren't Michael Jordan, the star of the Chicago Bulls. It just ain't happening, okay? So when you stop and think about what motivates people, the goal setting and all the rest of that sort of stuff, what most people don't realize is that the main reason for, objectives and goals and time frames and all that good stuff, they call it writing your dreams down and all that good stuff. And then the affirmations and the ha. Well, okay, it's action, guys. It's 100% action. You make goals so that you can chunk that down into your behaviors in a minute and hourly kind of a basis and daily basis and weekly basis. When you're paying attention to what you should be paying attention to, the stuff you want automatically happens. When you're paying attention to other stuff, it don't happen. I don't care how many times you make an affirmation and all the rest of that. By, I'm going to use a technical term, by shit luck, some things may just happen in your life, and you're going to blame those on the law of attraction. And I'm going to tell you what, they would have happened anyway, okay? Now, when you can point and shoot, and 80% of the time, what you want shows up because of your intentionality and your hard work, that's a different kettle of fish all the way around. You're not going to pay attention to breakthroughs that don't matter. You know, excellence is about planning your breakthroughs and having them with such a high degree of frequency, and being willing to fail the number of times that you have to in order to bring those times, right into succession, and boom. So I love the whole notion of, some people get out of bed and they hope they have the best day ever. Other people get out of bed and they say, you know, I think this is going to be the best day ever. And then other people get out of bed. This is a minority. It's a very small handful of people who actually have the audacity to say this about their life. I will make this the best day ever and live it and experience it as much as I possibly can, as long as I'm awake or asleep. So moving on from there, you have had the opportunity to light the candle with a bunch of different people as far as martial arts is concerned, and with Quester's Way. And what would you say is the mechanism by which you create the martial arts leaders, because they're all around you?
I think it's intentional design. That's without. It's an interesting question, because there's a risk I think a lot of people fall into, and it's one we're very vigilant against, of ego creeping in a way where you start, you're like, you can mentor people, and if you do it right, they evolve into their best selves, and your place is more like a guide for them. And but it's very easy to start owning their success and making it about you, or to start taking your own view and values and subtly or blatantly imposing that on them. And so what we would do is, in the dojo, the idea was, and this was also in Quester's Way, and now some of the people that have expanded beyond that I'm working with, it's the same things happening. It's just creating a design that lowers resistance, so that you make it as easy as possible for people to make good choices, and help them get clear on why those are good choices for them. And if they're not good choices, give them the ability to dig into it without judgment. There's consequences. I deal with that with teenagers all the time. The parents would come in, teenager did something stupid, there's a consequence. They get grounded, they lose privileges, or whatever, get fired from a job. Those are just consequences. But what we would focus on is, how do you give them the space for that to be a learning experience that they can leverage into, being a better version of themselves than they are right now. So, so what happened is, we'd have all of these leaders would kind of, they would come into an environment that was consistent, predictable, and safe, where they could explore, they could do things right, do things wrong. It was all nothing special. It was just part of the process of their own personal evolution. And they were in an environment where, we had very clear boundaries on how you respected each other and how you respected yourself. And then just things would happen, Quester's Way is a good example. We didn't have any idea what things would be taught. We knew there would be movement-based things, there'd be project-based things for the brain, and there'd be social things. We didn't know what they were. And before you know it, we've got chess and painting and Dungeons and Dragons and breakdancing. Could have been something totally different. We created a design to make sure that whatever was interesting for teachers and students, they could come together, but we didn't try to force that in a direction. We just allowed it to unfold. I don't know how good an answer that is, but that's the best I've got.
It's very engaging. You have to from hello, okay? So, what I pull out of all of that is, to distill it down, you have the same thing with a plant. You get a spider plant, and it may come in a 4-inch pot, and mm-hmm. So you do what you can with Miracle Grow and the right kind of, soils and all the rest of that sort of thing. It can get so big. It's going to be what we call pot bound. Human beings experience that same phenomenon where what happens is the size of the culture impedes their ability to grow beyond it. And what I mean by the size is what is the space that's available for people to do well and to do poorly and take the lesson, right? First of all, you get this criteria of people that are in the culture that are only committed to doing better, like you said, to get to learn how to be their best self. And when that happens, and everyone is supportive of each other, there's an analysis that can take place, which is about what was missing. And in many cases, the only thing that's missing is that the conversations become too small. There's no place
Yeah.
to go. So you put a spider plant into an 8-inch pot or a 14-inch pot, but you do this like a little bit at a time as opposed to going from a 4-inch pot to a 20-inch pot.
Mm.
You risk having it die by having either too much water, not enough water. There's too much nutrition, whatever it is. So stick with me on this analogy because I may or may not be totally accurate, but my point is this. Human beings operate in much the same way. They need to expand, in my opinion, and I've got a lot of years of coaching people, creating leaders in manufacturing facilities, my business, coaching situations with other business owners and that sort of thing. And they grow best when the space to fill is actually just a little bit beyond, their where their reach can exceed their grasp, but not too much more than that. They need to develop the muscle to where that now becomes usual and ordinary and part of their core competencies. That's something they're unconsciously competent with. Then you can move on to them discovering some area where they have been unconsciously incompetent, and now it's kind of a thorn in their side. This is that thing that they've been avoiding, that all of a sudden they really realize this is what I got to do next. And this ain't going to be easy. This is going to be bad news for a little while, but let's go give it a shot. And then when you've got this environment of people around it and everybody's cheering for each other, not, like crazy cheering all the time, but little comments like, how you doing today? What's the next thing for you? What are you working on? Where are you going with this? So all of that is just an amazing way that we as human beings, we can take this to our communities, to our schools,
Yep.
to businesses, churches, civic organizations, Facebook, Twitter. It can be out there everywhere. There's no reason why we can't stand for each other.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting is the importance of personal responsibility with how you approach, especially if you're in a leadership position, a teaching position. In my opinion, we're all teachers all the time.
Yes.
We may not know it, but everything you do is setting some kind of an example or relaying information that someone else is processing, maybe not even on a conscious level, and it's influencing how they now move through the world. So, if you were to talk to any of especially the first decade of when it was really just me doing a lot of the teaching, if you asked any of those kids that have been with us for any length of time, what my personal goal was as a teacher, they all would have said the same thing. My goal was to help them be better martial artists than I would ever be in my lifetime. Like, from the beginning, not to get them almost as good as me, but hold some kind of position of power over them or not be threatened by them outgrowing me. And we had several. We had one girl who got so good in competition that she had to go to other schools. We couldn't effectively train her because she had just, and she ended up being a world champion, and that was not going to happen if we had somehow tried to contain her or hold her back or influence her parents, in some way where, well, you don't need them, or, oh, that's a wrong direction for you. It was a very interesting and conscious choice to constantly choose to get out of the way, to be in support. And in our leadership program, that was actually what we spent a lot of our time doing, not training people to lead, training them to support, training them how, when someone else was running a class, to be the one that made them look amazing, to, the Zen practice of leave no trace, to make all of that difference and be invisible at the same time. So, so it's just kind of interesting how each of us has to kind of look at ourselves and constantly ask that question, how much of our own personal identity is either, could potentially be limiting the growth of, a person, a project, or an organization, So, and I think if you look at a lot of organizations right now, you can see where that happens, where someone's personal needs or agenda or belief systems actually become limiting factors on that system realizing its potential. So that was a big part of it for us, not letting that
I
happen.
think that is a wonderful point for us to segue, take a break, and start up on the other side. Because
Sure.
when we start talking about best day ever with regard to us personally, and the things that we think we have control over or not have control over, and then how does that become a cultural phenomenon? And then, as you said before, what are the things that you do to be kind of self-regulating? You have governors that are on certain like go-karts, so that they can't do 70 miles an hour around a quarter of a mile track. So let's pick it up on the other side. And I'm really having a ball exploring this concept of best day ever with you, Ken Caputo.
Yeah, it's fun as always.
All right, y'all come back now, people at home. We're looking forward to having more conversation on the other side. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.